Hour. Right now joining us is Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. He's a member of both the Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about how these 10 American sailors, 9 men, 1 woman, were detained, the conditions?
Well, Wolf, I think pretty much what I can tell you has been in the news. It is pretty straightforward. There's no admission at this time in any event that the vessel was in Iranian waters. How a lot of us view this is the sailors were very lucky that we're only a few days away from the Iran deal that the president negotiated going into effect, which would cut loose about $100 billion. Everyone knows it is the worst kept secret in the world that Iran is very, very desperate for cash. They're going to get their hands on about $100 billion or more in cash. I don't think that they wanted to see that held up for 1 minute. And I think that that's the reason this thing ended the way it ended. The way this ended is not typical of the way Iran does things.
But you got to give the Secretary of State, John Kerry, I assume you give him some credit for that quick phone call to the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif to get these sailors out of there.
Of course.
And the criticism that we heard yesterday from some of your Republican colleagues that the administration should have been more forceful, the president should have addressed this directly in a State of the Union address, the administration fearing if they would have done that, that would have elevated it, could have made it even more precarious for those American sailors. With hindsight, certainly those admonitions, do you believe, were misguided?
Well, I think in hindsight right now, the thing... First of all, the sailors should never have been taken in the first place. Secondly, they certainly shouldn't have shot propaganda film. They certainly shouldn't have interrogated them. But having said all that, it ended quickly, it ended peacefully, and always after a prayerful fashion. This is how you want something to end. Again, I come back to the fact that I think that the $100 billion has a lot more to do with it than anything else surrounding this.
Because some experts, naval experts, have pointed out, and you heard it in Barbara Starr's report from the Pentagon, that if the situation had been reversed, if two Iranian patrol boats strayed into U.S. territorial waters with 10 Iranian sailors, the U.S. presumably might have done the same thing to them that the Iranians did to the Americans. You buy that?
Maybe. It would depend upon the circumstances, where it happened and how it happened, and whether or not they were able to resolve whether it was accidental immediately. So I'm not sure that you can compare one to the other. Certainly, it's a legitimate speculation.
Senator, I want you to stand by. There's much more news we need to discuss. Let's take a quick break. More with Senator Risch right after this. We're talking with Senator James Risch. Senator, stand by. There's breaking news we're following. The FBI now investigating the ambush shooting of a Philadelphia police officer as a terrorist attack. Our justice correspondent, Pamela Brown, is following the story for us. What's the new information, Pamela? What's the latest?
Well, the FBI director, James Comey, said today in Pittsburgh while he met with the field office for the first time that this was a terrorist attack, this attack against the police officer in Philadelphia by the suspect, Edward Archer, who walked up and shot at that officer 13 times in the name of ISIS, according to officials. That attack is exactly what the terrorist group has been encouraging, and it comes a month after San Bernardino, the terrorist attack there. I had an exclusive interview today with the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and I asked her about these terrorist attacks recently, asking if this is the new normal. She said that is a big concern. Wolf?
We're going to have some of that interview coming up later here in the Situation Room. Pamela, stand by. I want to bring back Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. He's a member of both the Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committees. I assume you agree with the FBI director that this was, in fact, a terrorist attack, or is it simply being investigated as a terrorist attack?
Well, obviously it's under investigation, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a Philadelphia lawyer, I guess, to figure it out when you heard what he was saying about promoting ISIS and doing this in the name of ISIS and doing exactly what ISIS has been calling for on the internet. It needs to be looked at as that, and it's just another one of a series of these that we're having that are becoming way too frequent, and it needs to be prosecuted as such.
You heard President Obama in the State of the Union address say ISIS doesn't pose an existential threat to the United States. Serious threat, but not an existential threat. Your response?
Well, clearly, he's correct in that ISIS is not going to bring down the United States. We're more likely to do that ourselves with our spending habits. But having said that, are they a danger individually? Of course they are. You could go out and talk to any of the victims now, and there's been a number of them across the country over the last year, either as survivors or people who have been injured by ISIS-inspired attacks, and they would beg to differ with the president as far as the level of concern about this. This is something to be concerned about. ISIS is so much different than Al-Qaeda in that regard, in that they have been very, very successful in inspiring these attacks, and indeed, in some cases, directing these attacks.
As you know, some say this will be a generational war, this battle against ISIS and the other terror groups out there. A generation is what, 20 years? You think it is going to be a 20-year war?
Well, your interview with King Adbullah was, I think, very instructive in that regard. You have to remember that this man, the king, is viewed and regarded in his culture as a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, I think 41st generation. And he is very clear and uses an Arabic term to describe all of these various groups, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Daesh or ISIL or Boko Haram or al-Nusra, as outlaws within the Islamic religion. And given his standing, people should listen very carefully to what he has to say. Having said all that, also, he is a great friend of the United States. He shares really our view of what these people are doing in the name of Islam, and that it is not something that that people of Islamic faith do support or should support. And he should be listened to carefully in that regard. He's very optimistic in the short run. Obviously, he wants more help. But in the long run, he feels that this is a struggle that's going to go on for some time.
He is a great friend of the United States. I totally agree.
He really is.
Everybody who knows him agrees with you on that point as well. Senator, thanks very much. And by the way, we're going to have more of my exclusive interview with Jordan's King Abdullah. That's coming up later this hour, including his eye-opening take on Donald Trump's call to keep, at least on a temporary basis, Muslims from entering the United States. What's the King's reaction? Much more on that, much more on the war on ISIS when we come back.
But at the same time, we can't let probably